Okay, we'll call the Wheat Board meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll look at the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any questions or
We have to do roll call first.
want to do roll call?
Yep.
Okay,
Roll call. Mr. Gibbon,
Yes.
Mr. Paulson,
yes,
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
We're missing Mr. Simonic and Mrs. Gillespie.
Here?
And Member Hammer's here. So we're
okay,
one short.
okay. Then we'll need approval of the meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
I'll go ahead and approve them.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
All right,
Randy?
do you want us to do roll call again on that? No? Okay, everybody in favor of the
Yeah.
approval?
Aye.
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 Carried. The approval of the meeting agenda. Anybody have anything to add, or,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carried. And we'll move on to reports.
All right, you guys should have a copy of budget report. Not a lot going on out of there yet. I think typically we'll wait probably a few more months before we purchase spray, but, right now, everything is looking pretty decent on it. Any questions regarding any expenditures or any of the line items? I will make note, since this probably doesn't really happen a lot, up in the top under personal services. Under the overtime wages, this current period, we did have, Russ had some overtime. A lot of that was due to, or the past pay period anyway. A lot of that was due to, conditions were really good for spraying. And so he started early, stayed late, several days to get some work done, so. Any questions on the budget?
Doesn't look like it.
None? All right, thank you.
Do we purchase all our weed chemical in advance or as you go along, or what do you do?
Typically, we'll purchase late summer is when we'll usually make an order, and sometimes we'll do two orders
Okay.
to the two different vendors possibly. But usually, and we'll purchase in the fall, late summer for the following season,
Okay.
so.
Has the townships notified you if they want their ditches sprayed yet or not?
Yes, but I believe they've all been the ones that wanted to have requested it.
Hasn't happened.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes through Russ, so. Anything else? All right.
Okay. We'll move to the spray update.
All right, early on, real crap conditions. We had warm, then wind and cold. Some of the early spraying, the little bit I got done didn't work. I'm gonna end up respraying that. And I switched mainly to just spot spraying versus my rotation of some solid sprayed, some spot. And I've got across 90% of the county roads. We did get 6 townships want them to spray. I've got 2 done and I'm 1 load short of the 3rd one done. And the other 2 will be done in the fall. Weeds, yeah, they're a nightmare this year. Canadian thistle is the new state flower, so lots of them, and that has to do with drought. You know, they got a long, deep root, so they went nuts, and they're everywhere. Chasing them as hard as we can. Other than that, yeah, I'm pretty much up to date on spraying. Questions on how I'm doing, what I'm doing?
How many townships are there? You sprayed for 6, you said.
Mm-hmm.
There's 16 townships?
Yeah.
So what do the other 10 do? Nothing?
Some do a really good job, some do not. There are 2 of them that I am dealing with or going to deal with. They gotta do a better job. A lot of them fall spray. So summer looks crappy. Spring's early, then about midsummer, it loses, you know, your chemical gives up. But I need to, there are 2 of them that I need to have a serious conversation with.
Okay.
Can you tell the townships, or those areas that maybe mow twice? I know some of them have gone to that, you know, to try to knock down some of the weeds, because I know early in the spring, they're a little leery to spray due to, you know,
Yeah.
early planting this year and so forth, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that spring spraying in a township ditch is difficult. You got, most ditches ain't 20 foot wide. So most of them want fall spray, or at least get stuff earlier. And I know when I spray them for them, you really gotta be touchy on the wind, so it can take you a month to get through, you know, 36 miles of a township. Mowing them, that's great as long as you can get the full width of the right of way. Most of them only get about 6-8 feet of the shoulder. And that's one township, they do the mowing, but you still got 10 foot of Canadians to the fence. So, yeah, mowing as long as you get them. And a lot of township ditches, you couldn't drive in them to mow them anyway. Some are really good, some are not, you know. Other questions on my spraying?
Well, if there's no questions, we'll move to the equipment update then.
Equipment's doing pretty good. Normal issues, leak here and there. I might change flow meters on a couple of trucks. One was giving me a little bit of an issue and it cured itself, and I looked at the date on it and it was 1991, so it's been doing pretty good. And it's a good Raven one. They work, you know, my numbers match up, but I may have to update them. But they're $400 a piece, so I'm gonna use them till they won't work no more. But no, the equipment's been doing good. No big bad problems.
Good. Any questions on the equipment, or? We'll move to the trouble spots on.
As far as changing complaints this year, I'm currently about 45 that I'm going after. We got about 18 letters out. There's a spot up on the Lennox exit that been a lot of going around on that, and that was companies out of Texas that own it, and it's been quite the chase to get a hold of them. 2 different companies. The first one I had 14 phone calls before I finally got to a resolve on that, and I did get the other one resolved just before I come to the meeting today. And that one I had to kind of do a backdoor way to try and get a hold of them, going through realtors that are representing the property to get a hold of them, but it will be mowed in the next 3 days or as soon as it dries up, so. They do take time, and we do have to, follow a certain order no matter what. I mean, if you don't follow that order, when I got our our paperwork, when I took over 3 years ago, I went to the state's attorney and what can I do, can I do? And you gotta follow them steps down every time, because if you miss, you gotta start over. You know, so it can take time. And I know when somebody calls, it's terrible and they want it done right now, but you have to follow the same every time, and it's frustrating. I farmed for 40 years, I know, and come on, do something, but we're getting them slowly but surely. There are plenty out there.
I do have a question. I'm new at this.
Mm-hmm.
Do people contact us when there's a issue in that area and then we contact you, or how does that all work?
There is a website now that was just done here in the past couple of weeks that they can get through Lincoln County Courthouse, but they can contact me directly, they can contact the highway department, any one of you, give them my cell number, cause I'm.
Do they have our cell number too then, or?
I don't think that's on the website, your cell number. It has mine, it has Terry's. It has all the information to get to me, who's gonna go chase it if they got a weed complaint.
Okay,
But yeah, if somebody calls you with a problem with weeds, yeah, get a hold of me or give them my number, and
Okay.
I will follow it up with them.
all right.
Just
yeah.
a couple weeks ago, I got a complaint and I send them right to them, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give them my number. That's my job, to follow weed complaints, so.
Okay,
Yeah, and yeah, they're getting this website up. We haven't had one before, and it's gonna help, so if somebody goes looking, they at least have somewhere to go. There's both email and then my numbers and the highway department's that, so they can get it to us. And we'll follow them up from there.
I know too, the phone calls I have is probably, most of them involving that exit, the Lennox exit, and I know Sunday was a tough day, the wind was blowing and they were flying, and I know probably caught a lot of people's attention. And I had been in contact with some of the neighbors in that area for the last 3 weeks, and I know they're frustrated with the process. I don't know how we can do it any different other than what you have said, because we have to follow the procedures and not be guilty of trespassing and those type of things. And, you know, I was hoping we could just go out there and mow them, but again, that's setting a very poor precedent too, because
If we were to,
unfortunately, there'll be others that expect us to do the same thing and not have to do their,
yeah, if you don't follow the steps and I was to enter that ground, that's trespass, and then you're open for being sued. You got, and the way it's written, and I can get look up the laws, and then I can't say the other one comes from the weed board, but you need to give everybody the same, doesn't matter who it is, equal time. You gotta give them reasonable time, so it can't be 3 days. Ours is a 7 to 10, basically a working week, and it takes 3 days for a letter to get out. And you gotta make personal contact. You've gotta do all these steps to get anywhere, cause if you go on their property without their permission, then we're open for liability. And I know they want it to happen fast, but we do the best we can. 90% of our stuff, it's a phone call or a letter, and I get an answer the next day. But then you get some that they're very difficult to find. Oh, the other one we talked about in our first meeting, 85th Street. That took several phone calls, but Sioux Falls did mow 3/4 of it, and I got Springdale Township to spray the south portion of it that still isn't in the city limits. That's one of them, who does it really belong to? And they're back and forth, and I begged and pleaded and finally got them to, they did something. It's better than nothing. I got them to take a step in the right direction anyway. Other questions on trouble stuff?
this time of year, are you limited to what you can spray? Is it pretty much more Roundup type of products or glyphosate?
No, I still use Milestone and my thistles. That's basically what I go after now. Yes, it burns the grass, but if you don't go after them, they're gonna keep going. And I'm trying to keep them from going to seed, which they're gonna go to seed. Now I kinda switched to my fall, only the worst stuff I'll chase after of ours. And then the two townships, I'll wait till fall, but I go after my real bad spots now, and then in this fall, we'll go back over all the roads again and try and hit with a Milestone product to try and hold the thistles back, cause there's gonna be plenty. I do a lot of stuff with the Rangers. It helps because I can get right up to the fence. It's better than a truck throwing it 40, 50 feet, you know.
It's amazing how things grew in a dry year.
Oh, yeah. Roads that I thought were clean, that I was gonna be just spot spray, and then you go out there and you get in the ditch and they're anywhere from 2 inches to 2 foot tall, you know, so now you're fighting that, you can get them burned back and they keep coming, and yeah, I won't run out of business, I can tell you that. That's all I got on that. Anything else for me?
Okay.
That new weed, wow, I never heard of that weed before. That was on last minutes.
Oh, the one you brought in? Just
No,
now?
It was,
Past minutes, which one was it?
bucket.
Bru-
It's like kosher.
For the buckthorn that's on here?
Buckthorn?
No,
Yeah.
We aren't down to that quite yet.
It's on here. I don't see it right now.
This one?
past minutes. They
Yeah.
changed, they put it onto the,
Well, yeah.
it slips my mind. Looks like kochia.
Well, we're gonna discuss that, putting it on the noxious weed list, is that what you're talking about?
No, he was talking about the one that you brought in here.
Oh, that one I
showed
brought
us
in?
that-
Oh.
In
the
the
one
plastic bag.
That one that he brought in today, or from
Yes.
the minutes last
Oh,
meeting?
from the minutes from the last meeting, I never heard of that weed.
Well, we're coming to that yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
All right.
Any more questions for trouble spots or anything? All right, we'll go on to the old business.
Do we have to approve the reports first?
I don't think we ever have before.
Okay, all right.
So is there any old business that we need to discuss? Basically, that was the election of officers, last time that was the main thing. Any discussion on any of that, or we can just move on to new business then? Okay, new business. John, you're gonna,
Wake up the box here, I guess. There we go. Mr. Chairman, may I approach the dais? I have a handout that
Sure.
I'd like.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you here today, and I'd like to thank you all for coming forward to help with this important work. We're all busy, and it's wonderful when people stand up and take responsibility for concerns that we have as a community, as a county, as a state, and as a nation. I moved into northern Lincoln County in 1988. And when I say northern Lincoln County, if I wind up real good, I can toss a potato into Minnehaha. So I'm really quite up there, the part of the north part of the state. I live in a development, a wooded development up there, that's primarily oak trees. And well, it used to be primarily oak trees. But we have this unfriendly visitor that has been encroaching itself on our land. I'd like you to take a look at that first photograph that I put in front of you there. You'll see my little boy, Richmond, who has now graduated from college and is now a banker in the Twin Cities. That is shot out of my window, and I'd like to call your attention to those two evergreen trees that were planted back there. I expect this photo would be about 1994. It's actually a photo, so I don't have data from it. But if you'll turn the page, this photo was shot from the exact same vantage point. The apple tree there to your left, my wife and I rescued from a project we had at work. And it has flourished. There are the two evergreen trees that you see there. And if you look back at the original photograph, that's the end of my land there where the fence is. It was an open field. And there was nothing on it except two evergreen trees and a couple of oaks. Everything that you see in the next photograph to the right is buckthorn. None of it was cultivated. None of it was brought in. It just so happened that being on the far north part of a 2-acre piece of land, my next door neighbor chose to not mow or control weeds there. That's all buckthorn now, all of it. And you can't see through it, you can't walk through it. It's crazy stuff. If I may again approach? Sure. This is one of the girls. This is a weed that reproduces sexually. They're kind of like pheasants. There's about 6 females to every male on your property. And it's the girls that do the damage, obviously. The thing about buckthorn is that if you have a place for a bird to roost, you will end up with buckthorn in our area. It does all kinds of crazy things. A bird will eat it, sit on another tree, and deposit the seeds around it there. You take a look at this photograph that I've got on the video here, and you will see a photograph into the property to my east. That's what it looks like now. And you see that carpet? The carpet is all buckthorn. And it will compete with itself to create the canopy. Once the canopy is there, it kind of holds itself back. But once the canopy is there, nothing else literally can grow in that area. I am going to show you, I'm going to give you a walk into that canopy there. And you can see what it looks like inside. I'm now walking with my neighbor's permission, my new neighbor, by the way, into what used to be an open field. You see now.
So the smaller is seedlings of it growing, the smaller green?
That's all buckthorn. All of it is buckthorn. But you see now, under the heavy canopy, there really is nothing growing there. It's mostly just soil at this point. Nothing can grow under that buckthorn canopy. It's totally black. Our entire development of 30-some homes, anywhere there are trees like this, there is incursion of buckthorn like this. And it's, the entrance to our development, it's killing everything in its path. I also, myself and my siblings own property in northeast South Dakota. I'm a Webster boy originally. And our property up there also is being invaded by buckthorn. It's all pin oaks up around that area, pin oaks and bur oaks, but they're being destroyed by this. Because the birds deposit it at the base of the trees, when the buckthorn takes off, it starts usurping the nutrients from the trees. And I actually had photographs, I wasn't able to find them, of buckthorn plants wrapping themselves and growing around the trunk of the tree that they were at the base of. And it's virtually impenetrable. Yeah, I think this might also be a very brief video of my neighbors. You see, that's what it looks like where it hasn't established itself as a canopy, but it will, and then it'll take over. And this plant is, my research tells me that it is moving west out of Minnesota. It's already been designated persona non grata in Michigan and Wisconsin. If you'll take a look at the next page that I handed out to you, you will see the states where this particular source has designated that common buckthorn has become invasive. It's moving westward. And when I contacted the state, they told me, I have to start with you folks. And that's why I'm here, taking up your time and your energy here today. I think we have a problem that we need to deal with. What you're seeing here is you're seeing a plum tree, a wild plum, that has been choked out by a buckthorn. I think I have a closer photograph of that. You can see here the plum tree, the wild plum, and growing right out of the base of it is a buckthorn bush, and it has destroyed, it has killed that wild plum. I think there are a lot of people that aren't very happy about wild plum either, but they're at least somewhat controllable. Here is a buckthorn starting up one of my evergreen trees. I haven't gotten to it yet. And here is one that I cut out years ago that was trying to kill that evergreen tree. I cut it out. I left the stump there for illustration purposes. And this is a shot of my hillside along my driveway. This is what it looks like now. Every year I cut that out. Every year I take a brush knife to it and cut it back, but you can't stop it. If you cut it, it will simply bush out and become a shrub. It was brought here because from Europe because it is a great hedging plant. It makes a very robust hedge very, very quickly, but it cannot be stopped once the birds start eating the berries and start distributing them. And I would really encourage, it's my understanding that to make this happen, first, it needs to be declared a problem on the local level, and then the state will take a look at adding it to their lists as well. I do have the list of county noxious weed and pests here in South Dakota. I see St. John's wort, for instance, is on here. I take one of those about every day to settle my nerves. But I see other plants on here. Absinthe, for instance. I had no idea that we had European absinthe here, which apparently inspired a lot of the French Impressionists at the turn of the 20th century. But that is considered to be a noxious weed as well. I'm new to this process as well. I don't really know what I'm doing, except I'm raising a red flag, and whatever actions can and should be taken to enable us to bring government to bear where this is not being controlled, where it is out of control. And I know what I'm saying there because I'm a hands-off guy. But this is a problem, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to move westward, and it will kill everything in its path. I am convinced.
The smaller, I guess, brush there, is it killable with any type of spray, or does that do damage to your trees, or what have you tried?
Well, I have a problem, and that is you're looking down into the cut, and this cut travels right through my land, okay? That cut runs all year long, except this year, it's not. And it runs down into a pond that feeds the Big Sioux River. The recommended product to handle this stuff is 2,4-D plus triclopyr. And triclopyr is not something that you want to apply to land that's on a watershed. So I can't broadcast this stuff next to my creek like that. It would be irresponsible for me to do that. So I just brush knife it and try to keep it back. There's another one that is used, Russ, you could perhaps help me. It's like Fortran or something like that.
No, there's Element,
Yeah.
Morlon,
Yeah, that's the one, Morlon, or, yeah, that's one that also was recommended to me. I think its use, again, on a watershed, which I happen to be on, I think is difficult. But I do spot spray. When I take down a tree, I've got a spot sprayer, and I'll whack it with a little bit of triclopyr, but I can't broadcast up there.
Have you seen this in other parts of the county? Is it all over, or is it
Well,
mostly the north?
I've hiked our whole area, yes, and along the Big Sioux River there, wherever there are trees, there is buckthorn along the banks of the river. I see it. And up north, up in the Glacial Lakes area, it's going pretty wild and crazy up there too. It's making its presence quite known.
What are some of these other states trying to do?
I wish I could tell you that. They have designated it as being an invasive species. It's my understanding that first you have invasive species, then higher up you have noxious weed. I think that's the way it's done. I believe that Michigan and Wisconsin have designated a noxious weed, but I can't stand by that. It's been a couple of weeks since I did that research, and I didn't take copious notes. What that at least does is give us the ability to talk to someone and say, hey, please eradicate this on your property. Please take this out. That's my understanding, what calling it a noxious weed does. It enables us to nudge someone and encourage them to remove it from their property. Again, I'm a hands-off guy, but I really think we got a problem here. and it's going to get worse.
It's not locally noxious in any other county yet, is it?
And if it is declared noxious, what the county will do is I will come out, I will see it, you'll get a letter that says you must eradicate it. And if you don't, we will come in and do it and you're charged the expense. When you get a noxious weed, the expense is still on the landowner, we just enforce them taking care of it. If it's on an invasive species, from what I understand, then it's, you try and put awareness out there like you're trying to do that, yes, this can get out of control. I've done some looking around the county and where we have it very north up in the rolling hills, the river bottom, there's spots here and there. As far as over, there's 370,000 acres in Lincoln County. I don't really find it in the crop ground, but a lot of that's farmed, so it doesn't get a chance to get going. But where it is heavily wooded and shaded out the ground and you don't have grass pressure and stuff, it will get going, and once it starts to expand, it can hit.
Can you take it out with a rodeo?
Being brush, it's real hard, to get it, rodeo's a glyphosate product.
Right.
Trying to get it down into the roots is hard on trees.
I asked that because you can do that in the right of way, in the waterways, and it
You
doesn't
can do that.
affect.
Rodeo is a aquatic roundup,
Yep.
basically is what that is. Now, triclopyr can be put on if you use the lower rate, and it'll take longer to kill it because you're hurting the plant to death instead of killing it. But then you're within, you could do the upper portions of your property at a broadcast rate, the lower rate, and it'll start taking it down. You just gotta be careful you don't have heavy rain, so the plant will metabolize it, to where if you get it put on too heavy and you get a heavy rain, then it moves. But if you put it on and you don't get heavy rains and that, and it's got 2-week time, then it will take it into the plant. The plant utilizes it, metabolizes it, gets out of the soil. But yeah, it's a touchier one to deal with.
May I ask Russ a question? Say 3% or 5%?
I would have to look at the label again to see what it is, but yeah, any of them chemicals, if you put it on, where you really gotta worry about on steep grades and stuff near waterways is you don't get a heavy rain and you stay at the lower rate so it doesn't translocate through the soil. The plant will metabolize more of it faster. And once a plant metabolizes a chemical, it's for the most part out of the soil. But if you broadcast a high rate next to it, it's gonna wash, it's gonna get into the water. That's where Mr. Hammer brought up using rodeo, which is an aquatic that you go spray a lake with. But glyphosate doesn't work well on trees, it'll burn the leaves off
Yeah.
before it can get to the roots to kill it.
Yeah, well, that's systemic rather than,
Yeah. It,
I'll look into rodeo, I will.
yeah, there's, Clearcast is another one too. But there are aquatic chemicals you can use. You could, what you guys have up there, a lot of that little stuff, that's where you gotta get started. If you don't keep getting rid of that, the only other option is tillage, where you'd have to go in and basically clear the hill off. A little bit of reading, I'm no expert, he knows more about buckthorn than I do, but a little bit of reading. If you could burn the ground, that helps kill some of the seed, so it's like burning off Canadian thistle. There's the seed, so we don't have a ton of it here. If it gets going, it's in a river bottom, and like up in the development where they're at, where there's less, per se, agricultural.
now I say, I saw a buckthorn patch on an old cemetery site and nothing around it because they farmed it. They come through with the tillage and it's done.
Well, there is, right in the middle of our property, there is a common ground, common area, and we kind of mow that all, we kind of work together to keep that mowed. But there are croppings now of buckthorn that are growing in the common ground. And I just have to get together with my neighbors, and we're gonna have to go in there with chainsaws and cut it out and stop those outcrops.
Keep it mowed off, it's gonna take 50 years, but you gotta keep mowing off the seed until, you can't let the plant get this big. You gotta get it to that, and then just constantly keep mowing it until the seed wears itself out.
And I just reading an article here on my phone that if you cut it off and don't spray it, you made it worse,
Yeah,
because it's gonna,
that is my experience.
Chemical is the way to get rid of it.
I also have a device, I've got a thing called a polar bear. It's a device that you put around the base of the thing. When you pull back, it grips the base of it. I can take out something up to about an inch with this device. I can pull it out, and I'm pulling them out where I can. It's rather labor intensive, but